All right, I am recording this in the background. John is here, and I'll turn it over to him in a couple of seconds. I just wanted to say a couple of words. If you hear crying in the background, it's my dog because he thinks I'm ignoring him. Um, I hope you can't hear that because it's pretty disgusting. So as always, we the disclaimer. I just wanted to put this up there. I he's barking at me now. The disclaimer is that as you can see, this for educational purposes only. We are, John is a educator and a trader, and I'm the doctor, not a broker. But we're doing this because we want you to learn how to get great use out of John's tools, and anything that we discuss here, and this is my disclaimer, John probably has his own, is not to be considered investment advice, but should be taken in the spirit of education. So that said, I can close that off. Before I turn over to John, some of us were fortunate enough to be at John's meeting last week. Those that were there, I think, had a great time and learned a lot. I had a lot of positive comments from the folks that were there. Several of us had the opportunity to get together for a couple of days, a couple hours on Friday. One of the things that we've been talking about coming for a long time are some updated scans. What I wanted to do is spend a couple of seconds, if TradeStation is going to cooperate with me moving it. Okay, it's not cooperating. Darn it. All right, so what I wanted to point out before TradeStation kicks itself off, that we now have a number of new scans. And if you don't have these scans, it's probably because you didn't get an email from Mary that talked about alerts, which I know John's going to talk about tonight, and some of the scans. And if you haven't gotten that, you need to contact the office. I mean, if you're a lifetime owner, you're entitled to that. And I assume anybody that's on tonight is a lifetime owner. Really exciting stuff. And my TradeStation froze when I brought it over from one monitor to another and changed resolution. So God only knows. But I've been always referring to my buy signals 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the past. And with the original scanners that we were getting from John and Mary, there was a buy 1 and buy 2. And we were missing we were missing the original buy 2. And then the other part was we had the HCDs, and we had one HCD daily and one HCD weekly, and then the same for the downside. What I wanted to point out is we now have new scanners, that the new scanners include 4 different buy signals. If I remember correctly, buy number 1 is a buy signal, and I believe it is all buy signals. There's a buy signal 2. So there's 4 signals, and since I can't get the highlight, I might mess it up. So let me just tell you what they are. One of the buy signals is all daily buys. So any stock in a daily buy will show up. I think that might be buy number 4. One signal are daily buys. Can you guys hear me? I see Bruce said sound disappeared. You just saw my... All right, 1 is a daily buy when in weekly buy mode. Perfect, thank you guys. Buy number 2 is a daily buy, weekly buy mode at support, if I remember correctly. The third one, and I might be mixing up number 2 and number 3, is a daily buy near pivot support, but not necessarily a weekly buy. And then JP buy number 4 are all the daily buys. So what that allows you to do is to really cut down on the number of symbols you have to look at, because personally, I like buying stocks that are near pivot support. And so that has been the buy 2 that was missing, so our new buy 2. And when you look at buy 3, not only are they, or rather buy 2 rather, not only are they daily buys at pivot support, but those that are the new JP buy 2s also are in a monthly buy signal. So as I do my analysis, there's a difference to me between stocks that are in a daily buy but in a weekly sell, and in stocks that have been in a weekly buy that just got into a daily buy today. So it helps to differentiate that. The HCD scans include all the HCDs that you've seen before, but now you have an HCD that takes into account support, and the same for the LCDs and the sells. So I had a lot of people asking me over the last 2 or 3 months why my buy signals and sell signals were different than theirs. You should have exactly what I'm showing you right here, which is, yours might be called something different, but 4 buys, 4 sells, and a plethora of HCDs and LCDs. That is a huge improvement. I also wanted to show you something that I'll be sticking into the Dropbox today, and that is an indicator that, there's already the indicator in the Dropbox for, it's called MP earnings and a bunch of numbers that allows you to, in a radar screen, see what stocks have earnings and when they have them. I had one of my friends create a new indicator for us, and that indicator basically just takes the information out of your radar screen. So the first thing is it only counts if the stock is in the radar screen that has the earnings indicator. But if that's the case, it puts on the chart the date of earnings, the time earnings are supposed to come out, and how many days are out. I know that, again, we're in another earnings season, and if you were unfortunate enough to be holding Macy's or Nordstrom's going into earnings, you now know why it's very important to know when earnings are. And as I say on my web things, it's a decision you have to make to be in or out of your stocks when earnings come. And that's, you're going to be right or wrong, but as long as you make the decisions on the basis of good information, I think you take your lumps and you get your gains. But to wake up and see your stock down 20% because you didn't know that earnings were coming out that morning, there's no excuse for that. So this will help you. Other things I wanted to bring up is, and of course mine is sort of in the process of shutting down, but there is a, I'm going to hopefully restart it and see what happens. Up in TradeStation, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a thing that says backup and restore archives. I highly recommend that if you have not backed up your TradeStation into an archive, that you need to do it. Since my computer or my TradeStation kicked me out, and we'll see whether or not I have to reboot or not, so I'm not sure I'm going to open it up. I'm going to put a video in the Dropbox tonight. Before you do anything to TradeStation, if you have a working system, if you do a backup, and again, I'll show you a video how to do it. It takes 3 minutes. If you do a backup, archive backup, yeah, it's still in memory, so let me kill this. If you do a backup, then when you kill TradeStation the next time, which unfortunately for me, it happens occasionally. It usually happens when I download new things. Frankly, it happens when certain things I have get updated versions. All you got to do to restore TradeStation turns out to be is to restore your archive. And if you do that from a, if you're working today and you go and you save that archive tonight, and then tomorrow you download something from me, from John, from anywhere in cyberspace, and it kills your TradeStation installation, instead of having to go through all the steps of loading all your indicators and your workspaces and your scans, it takes literally, and Bradley said you can do it every day, I agree, it takes literally 3 to 5 minutes to back up everything so that, let's say, for example, I'll make it a happy story. Let's say you were lucky enough for somebody to buy you a present and they got you a brand new Microsoft Surface Book, the i7 version. And you wanted to put TradeStation on it and you wanted to have everything that you're currently using. Well, all you got to do is install TradeStation, copy the archive file over from your working version or your working computer, and it's literally takes restoring one file to get back your entire system. So since I spend a lot of time playing and customizing, and I know there's other people on the phone that do the same thing, you are going to get a somewhat non-stable platform. Part of that is TradeStation. Probably a lot of it is TradeStation. But you've got to protect yourself, and the way you do it is, let me see, I'm almost there, open new desktop, okay, is where it says File right up here. I click it, and it says Backup Restore TradeStation. I hit Backup TradeStation. Everything's checked. I close it. Now I typically name them with today's date, and that was the last one, so this will be named today's date. And all you got to do is hit Start Backup. If you do that, what will happen is in your TradeStation, in your Windows directory, if you go into local disk, trades, and I haven't played with this computer in a while, I only do it for webinars, so I'm not sure what will be there. Will be something called TradeStation Archives, and that archive that you produce will be sitting here. When it's time for you to do, in fact, my archive is sitting on my desktop. So here's what an archive looks like. Continue. That's what an archive file looks like. And all I would have to do if I had killed TradeStation and I booted up a new vehicle, TradeStation, new version, is restore archive, browse, and find my archive. And if I hit open, it's now going to restore my computer, my TradeStation, to where it sat on August 31st, 2015. The other thing I wanted to show you, someone asked where that indicator is. So let me show you right now. I'm going to put it in the Dropbox. I'm going to take it out of my it says NP earnings for chart. And you also have to be using the NP earnings indicator. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to put it in our Dropbox. And if you are part of the PUG group and you don't have access to the Dropbox, it's because something happened, you didn't get your link, you need to email me. And just to point out before in a second, I'm going to turn it over to the star. And to show John, in the Dropbox, for those that have newer to join our group, and I know some people aren't here tonight, I've got a thing here called JP PUG Mini Mentorings. Every time, and I think one of them is duplicated, every time John does one of his trainings, I stick it into the PUG group. This is a limited access box. You can only get access to this Dropbox if you're a PUG member. So you can get your Taste of John whenever you want it. And I guess that's enough for that. So both of the earnings files that you need, this is the NP earnings, the basic file. Remember, you have to put the DLL file into your TradeStation program file. Then you import the ELD. If you open up this little Google file, it basically tells you how to do it. Get it on a different computer. I'm not going to move it over. And that's that. Yes, one more thing. Something that Mary pointed out, I haven't tested it because I'm still, in my mind, sorting out whether I want to do it or not because it's so easy for me to restore because when I break it, I know how to get back, is you can have more than one desktop. So I'm in a current desktop right now that's called Untitled. I can open up a second desktop. And I'm just going to call it whatever I want to call it. But I can switch. Let me open something up in this desktop that won't take time to load. I'll put in a chart. So in this desktop, I have a chart. Now I will have a chart. I have a second desktop. All I'm doing is switching desktops on my toolbar. And I'm going to hit the other desktop. And that's one. And that's two. Whoops. That's one. I guess they both have it. That doesn't make sense. I guess they must have done it twice. But you can have as many desktops as you want. Why would you want to have another? Oh, you know what? The desktop's on another monitor. How stupid am I? Here's desktop number 2 coming over. See if it stays over. Different sizes, and I've got desktop number 3. So I can have multiple desktops open at the same time. So what Mary's recommending, I haven't tested it, and mind you, except for I've put too much in the scanner, that's the only thing that I have shutdown issues. You can load all of John's stuff perhaps in one desktop and save that desktop. And you can load all your other crap, including my crap, in the second desktop. And that way, if my desktop goes down, I still have my John stuff working just fine, and I don't get into any issues with with my stuff interfering. I will tell you that I have at least 14 installs, because I've got that many computers, where I have all of John's stuff and my stuff working just fine together. But I do get shutdowns, as you saw, especially in the scanner. I think I combined too many things. So I just want to go over those quick housekeeping issues. I'll turn it over to John, and I'll plan on doing another one of these in a couple weeks, and I promised you some videos that we'll take a look at. I've been swamped of lately, been back building a new business, and this is my first day home in a while, and I was on a red eye to this morning when I got back home, and I had work to do, so I really appreciate the fact that John is here, and I'm going to turn it over. So John, you're up. I guess I stop my sharing and you turn yours on.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jeff. That was good stuff. Great stuff, especially for those that are maybe just getting into TradeStation, that have multiple monitors. What I've done is I call them Quad 1, Quad 2, Quad 3, Quad 4. When you get into a situation where you're a creature of habit and you like things, a particular way, then if you have your, on a 4-screen, or some people even get crazy and have 6-screen
You're not
setups,
picking on me, are you?
then you can open. No, not at all. I'm just saying there are those that have even 8-screen setups. I personally, with herniated discs in my neck, couldn't do a 6, but 8. But I mean, 2 different computers and the 4-quad setup is perfect. And basically, I mean, if you're trading stocks, or if you day trade and you have a watch list and you have a scan setup, anyway, just call them what they are, and so that you'll have different desktops. And I have multiple desktops. Tonight, we had a bunch of questions on alerts. We had a few questions on how to use the radar for day trading. So the first and foremost thing I'm going to get through is talking about how to set up the alerts. So many of you have on the advanced system. So on the advanced system, the first and foremost thing, let's say, for example, I want to be alerted to one of our indicators, high close or low close doji. So when we get a bona fide high close doji, I can be alerted several different ways. So basically what we want to do is whip up a screen. And so if you have multiple screens, typically when I'm looking at a trade, I have the 5-minute, 15-minute, 60, daily, weekly, monthly. I also have a different page for kind of day trading, where I have the ES 515, the YM, the NASDAQ, the Euro currency, and then I have my dome down below set up. And this is just, I don't really, if I want to expand it quickly, I can. And if I don't, I just put it back. It's all put into place. And yes, Jeff covered a very, very critical element for all traders, which is archive. And I think we had one of our members post significant advice, which is do it nightly, because there'll be times that you might add or delete something that comes into the radar screen. A stock gets added or delisted or a merger, and while we try to clean that up on releases, you might want to add your own little watch list in there, and so it's important to archive and save your pages. So with that said, let's review how to set up an alert. And it's fairly easy. If you right-click and go to Format Analysis Technique, and then you will see, well, what do you want to be alerted on? If you have the advanced system, you're going to be alerted to if you have the high close doji or the low close doji, and you want to be alerted to those, or you want to be alerted to the trigger, which is the arrow to buy or sell. So what you do is, let's go with a high close doji. I wanted to be alerted on this chart. This is the euro currency. It's a 15-minute chart. If I want to be alerted to any high close doji that comes in, I go simply to Format, and up a new box populates. It has general, tells you what it is, inputs, and then check on alerts right there. Then click on enable alert. All right, so what is it going to do? Well, click on, make sure the following message center notification. Use the global messaging preferences. Then click over here to configure. Okay. Do I want it to beep at me? Do I want a sound? What sound do I want? Strategy alert is what I default to, because then I know what's happened. Now, I'm wearing headsets, so you probably didn't hear that. It's just the TradeStation man voice that says strategy alert, right? Play it once, or you can play it continuously so that you blow your brains out, or get on the trade if you're not paying attention. Since I'm at the screen and typically I have ways to anticipate if that is going to occur, but let's say I don't. How would I anticipate a high close doji occurring? Well, if the market trades down and a doji forms, I know that within the next 3 minutes or 3 bars, for example, or 45 minutes in this case, because this is a 15-minute chart, I know within the next 3 bars, on a 15-minute bar, 3 bars is 45 minutes. I know in the next 45 minutes we could trigger a high close doji. Well, let's say I've got to do something, or something happens, or I'm scanning for stocks, or I get bored and I forget. Boom, high close doji, and you'll be alerted, strategy alert. You can also have a visual and say pop-up window. If you don't like the pop-up windows, uncheck visual. If you don't like the audible, uncheck the audible. But I also like the pop-up window, because just in case, because there's Murphy's Law, I might have headsets plugged in, and if I have headsets plugged in and they're not on my head, then I'm not going to hear the audible. So therefore, I have both audible and visual. And then if anything goes wrong at that point in time and I don't take the trade because I didn't hear or see it, then I wasn't in the room. Hit OK, and you're ready to go. All right? And so I'll do that one more time. So the steps, once again, to set an alert: right-click, Format Analysis Technique. Click on, well, in this case, we've done high close doji. Let's go to low close doji. Go to Format. Next, go to Alerts tab. I want to enable the alert. Use the global messaging preferences set up by default. Configure, and it's already been set up. It gives me the strategy alert and it gives me the visual, and hit OK. And that will give me the strategy alert. Hit OK one more time, or both, and alert me to a high close and a low close doji for this chart. So I have alerts enacted, and up in the upper left corner you can see where it says A. It is alerts, and if you highlight just by taking your mouse over there in case you forget, you will know that you have enabled the alerts on that one single chart for high and low close dojis. Now, let's say, for example, you want to create a lot of different pages or workspaces, for example, or you're going to create another desktop. If I want to create another desktop, and instead of creating all new charts, all I have to do is right-click, hit copy window, and then go over here to my new desktop actually, and just click on the desktop somewhere. Just click on the desktop and then paste window. Guess what? I have the same duplicate chart but the same setting, and that chart has the alert set up. So if I change that from 15 minute to 60 minutes, look what I've done. I've changed the time frame, but look, the alerts is already done. It's already telling me to send an alert now for this new chart with 60 minutes. It's a shortcut, so I can now go and create another window, paste the window if I want a 5-minute chart, and just go onward and onward. If I want these two new charts to be detached from the euro currency, all I have to do is change the symbol, ESZ15, and guess what? Now I'm asking it to give me an alert on an S&P 5-minute chart, new chart. I'm just asking it to change the symbol, ESZ15. I'm now asking it to give me a high and a low close doji on the S&P on a 60-minute. So you don't trade futures and you want Apple. Change the symbol. You're now asking it to give you a high or a low close doji alert if Apple triggers or fires off. So that is a fast way, or another shortcut. There's multiple ways of doing things in TradeStation, but to set an alert for the high close and the low close, but you can also set the alerts for the triggers, the arrows, all right? So that's one way that you can do it. So these are charts that I use for my trading. And the question is, do I use 60-minute charts for day trading? And the answer is absolutely yes. But that's not a platform question as much as a trading question, David. But yes, I absolutely use the 60-minute for several reasons. I like to look to see if we are in a strong trend mode in the 60 minutes. If the 60 minutes in a buy mode and you pull back against the moving averages and we're in a strong buy mode with strong volume, then I would look for, in that time frame at, say, 11 in the morning, for pullbacks. If you notice here at 11 in the morning, when you got a pullback, just as an example to answer your question, this is called a snapback, something I believe we covered at our seminar. Wish you were there. But this is a great question to ask on how we utilize for trading. And so with that said, if you look at the market in a pullback, and actually we even covered that 60-minute in the trading room today, at that benchmark and that pullback into support. That is something that we even identified to look for short-term buy signals that go with that dominant trend in the marketplace. So as the market pulls back at approximately at 11 o'clock, you'll notice here at 10:30, a high close doji fires off and gives a nice, incredible trend run in the market. So with that alert system set up, I mean, how would you, and this covers a bunch of questions all at once tonight, if the 60 minutes in a buy mode and I'm starting to see the momentum start to show that the bearish trend is dissipating and I'm in a buy mode, instead of taking that 60-minute benchmark breakout, we look for a pullback against the MAs. And when the market pulls back to the midpoint or into those MAs, at the same time that occurred, right, 11 o'clock, you'll notice at the 11 o'clock, 10:30 to 11 period, short-term buy signal fired off. This is exact setup that we did in the room and talked about today. Look for a short-term buy signal to go with a higher degree time frame buy mode. Very simply put, it's a very similar strategy to what a lot of traders and even Jeffrey likes. And I think Jeffrey has a couple nomenclatures referencing when a higher degree time frame like the weekly is in a buy mode, but then you get a few days pullback, and all of a sudden you get a daily fire off buy signal. Now you got a buy signal when the weekly's in a buy mode. In fact, we have a scan for that. Interesting. So the concept is the same for day trading. So can you imagine you're waiting and waiting, and I want to fire off a buy signal. Give me a buy signal on the euro currency on a 5-minute, because after a 60-minute breakout to the upside, it pulls back. All I have to, I mean, seriously, you got this big breakout, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 bars later, okay? I mean, 19 bars later, I mean, guys, you're sitting here blowing your brains out waiting for the right setup, right? I mean, things, you lose distraction. So setting the alert that, hey, 5-minute buy signal or 15-minute buy signal just triggered off the pullback against that 60-minute momentum, that is clutch. So while this is not, again, a nice, easy trend in how the tools work, obviously buy signal, last conditional change, high close doji, stop underneath the white line, last conditional change. You know, all pretty easy stuff and exciting to use when taught how to put things together. So that's number one, how we utilize and how the alerts with these indicators are going to help you in your trading, whether you're day trading or even swing trading. On the scanner feature, now, I did notice that Jeff was showing you, if you click on the scan page, just in case you forget, if you highlight, all you have to do is just click on, not the chart, so if you have a chart highlighted, right, and then you go over to the scan page, it won't work. So basically a technique is just click on the window or box of the scanner. Once you've highlighted that, you take your mouse, your cursor, and just kind of highlight over what buy signal number one is, and you should see that it says a daily buy when the weekly is in a buy mode. So it's a very similar concept that we just discussed. When the 60 minutes in a buy mode, look for pullbacks, then look for 5-minute buy signals to go with the dominant trend. Same concept here. So what we've done in the latest release is we've created or added, so we have a number 2. So if you click on number 2, highlight over it, a daily buy signal near pivot support. So pivot support is either one of two things. It's the blue line, because that's still in a raging, roaring bull market. The pivot, the blue line, as I teach, acts as support, or down to pivot point, the green support target, right? So actually, if you go back and just not sure, I want a daily buy signal near the pivot support. I want the daily buy signal near pivot support when the weekly's in a buy mode. That's pretty cool right there. And then number 4 is just a buy signal, no filter. Just show me all the stocks that generated a buy signal. High close doji. If you just want just high close dojis, it's there. We also included, give me a high close doji on a daily basis when the weekly's been in a buy mode, just in case, because sometimes we get a high close doji and then 1, 2, as you can see, this is the British pound ETF. Now, don't get excited and yell at me for trading the FXB. It's not a incredibly, as you can see, it's a very, I'm not going to say spiritual market because it's very holy, You can see holes, holes. These are called gaps. That was my trading joke there. It's a Sunday trade. We call it very holy. It's very gappy because it doesn't trade 24 hours. And it is the British pound, one of the, of course, weakest currency players on the board. Most people are familiar with the euro currency. But needless to say, there's a reason why we're focused on the British pound. But the other day, we generated in the FXB a high close doji at, guess what, monthly pivot support. So running a scan for how many daily high close dojis, or give me, if you notice here, if I can get a high close doji scan, but notice that 2 days later, and yesterday that is, it generated a PPS buy signal. Well, the difference between getting that information a day earlier and a day later is the difference of a profit. And so that's why it's important to, maybe run the scans like I do on the high close dojis first. And then, of course, we always have all of the combinations on the opposite side. So HCD daily, number 1, number 2, and LCD, number 1 and number 2, to find those really significant choice trading opportunities. If you like the old school, I still have my regular daily HCDs, and you should have those as well. So those are the scans that I rely on, and we're working on another one that includes another additional filter that'll come out down the road. But that, hopefully tonight, what I wanted to address is how do we set those alerts? When would they be appropriate to set? If you're in a daily buy signal, and I want to be alerted that right now, for example, the euro currency futures generated a daily buy signal. The FXE generated a bona fide daily high close doji. Let's take a look. So if I type in FXE on a daily chart, it should be gold or orange, and it is. So there it is. Not only did the FXE generate a daily high close doji, it also generated a PPS buy signal. So wouldn't that be nice that, okay, I got a daily buy signal, but the low is here, and my stop if I buy it, and if it doesn't, open or get much disadvantage by a gap higher open by tomorrow morning, or pulls back into support, my stop's all the way at 104.59. So what say I set a couple alerts to tell me that we've got intraday buy signals, right? That would be a pretty good idea. So the rules of a high close doji are fixed entries. When you get in, where your stop goes. Sometimes, though, when we get these enormous, for this particular session, from low to close, that's a deep stop and had an extended move to the upside. I would look for small pullbacks in situations like that, or scale in and get into a little bit and then look for a pullback to get into the rest of the position. So with that said, where do you get in? Well, is the market going to go here? Is it going to go here? Is it going to come all the way back here? I don't really know, right? I just know that I need to buy it, and then my stop needs to go underneath the newfound last additional change, which is 104.59. That's why that white line is put in there, all right? So what's really cool is I can turn to my intraday, go to my trading system, and I can just go to tapping into a chart on the FXE, and it just actually rang in my ear right now telling me we have a strategy alert, because of course while it's not FXE trading right now, it's alerting me because that was the last known signal. It had a 15-minute high close doji. That's not really an official high close doji because it's not after a downtrend. But so for tomorrow morning, we have a daily high close doji. Let's say we took a 60-minute and look for a retracement, or maybe a 15-minute, and alert me that there's a buy signal or a high close doji. And that's how we would do that, because tomorrow morning, let's say you're looking at all types of different markets, and you lost track of the the trade that you wanted to set up with, okay? So that's how we would utilize that tool, all right? So next, here we have, for day traders, the first thing that you have for equities traders, we had a question by an individual who wanted to know, how do I use the radar screen for day trading? Well, neat thing here is whether it's futures, click on intraday. You should have two tabs for futures: intraday, daily; Forex, intraday, daily; equities, intraday, and daily. So when you click on the intraday, you will note that the radar screen simply has the daily person's pivot information. What's contained in that? Well, first and foremost, the session is calling for bearish. So let's take a look at what that means. So let's take a look at a 60-minute chart. First thing on the top was Ralph Lauren. Let's take a look at Ralph, okay? So you'll notice that the pivots have been disabled. So go over, right-click, go to Format Analysis, and then you'll see JP Person Daily Pivot. Scroll over. Oh, it's disabled. Someone must have turned it off. Who was that? Maybe it was me. Maybe it was a goblin. Maybe it's the turkey from Thanksgiving's future. I'm not sure. But needless to say, all you have to do is highlight that, go over here to status, and it turned it back on. Close it up. Bingo. We've got pivots back. So notice what it's telling us is that tomorrow we are going to have a bearish outlook on Ralph Lauren. It's giving us a bearish outlook. It's giving us where the current price is, what the pivot support and resistance, and the percent target is. So if it's bearish and my indicators are pointing towards a lower pricing, if it gets near resistance and I get a sell signal, then I can look for what's a sell signal. Well, this column right here for day trading, this column right here will give me an indication that all of a sudden Ralph Lauren is popping into either a buy. Currently it's in a downtrend. And look what the last known signal on Ralph Lauren. It's saying that it's trend status. That column right there is defining the arrow. So what is it telling me? It's telling me, number one, that the person's pivots, blue is below gold. Blue is below gold. If bullish, that's not really good. Blue below gold. So it's telling me the market is bearish, right? The daily trend says downtrend. So let me double check something here. Oh, yep, it's right. Here is the daily chart. It's in a daily PPS sell signal from 2 days ago. 2 days ago, it triggered a short, a sell signal on the daily basis, right? So this is true. By just looking at the daily intraday page, I know that the person's pivots, which is a different indicator, is highlighting a bearish environment for the next trading session. It's targeting a lower high and a lower low of support. I also know on this page that the daily trend, the daily signal, is pointing down. Okay? The daily signal is, if it's generating a fresh buy signal or a fresh sell signal, it'll tell you what the daily signal is. The trend status. Now this is different. Notice that the interval here is 15-minute. That's what this is revealing to you. This column right there is saying that you're looking at a 15-minute interval, and it's saying that it is already in a downtrend, and it's been in a downtrend. It's saying that it is already in a downtrend, and it's been in a downtrend. So if we change this to a 15-minute chart, we should be in a sell signal mode. And we are. The last signal on a 15-minute chart is a sell signal. There it is. All right? So let's say for day trading a stock, all of a sudden I flip into a buy and I want to see a pullback. And I want to buy a pullback, and the market's the opposite. It's going up, but it had a pullback, and I'm waiting for a buy signal to act. Then I would be using and utilizing this page for intraday to see if we get a intraday buy signal, especially if we're, let's say, for example, go to Format Analysis, go to Daily Person's Pivot, turn it back on, hit Close. Let's say, for example, the market early in the day came down near this green, solid green targeted pivot support. If the histogram was showing that there was a loss of momentum, if the volume was starting to creep up, showing that the selling pressure was drying up, if this was near a longer-term support based off monthly, or if I had an idea that a reversal was getting ready to take place, then I would say, let me utilize this tool to see when we have an intraday buy signal near support. And, or more importantly, I can set an alert on that page, right? So you can set alerts on this page. You can set alerts on the chart. That's kind of a cool feature. So if you're focused on a few names, these are the things that you can, do that TradeStation allows, because of its own platform capabilities, allows us to be alerted to our indicators in what we're doing. So there's more to just the person's package than the scans, which there are multiple scans for the different market conditions. And that's kind of a really nice feature. One of the ways I utilize this tool consistently is in the equities intraday page, just like the daily page, the intraday page. You will notice I have different segments of the market. I'm looking at foreign market ETFs. I look at, as you know, and you have different sectors in the top stocks that I like to follow in those sectors. So let's say, for example, in the transportation, and all of a sudden I start seeing, or in biotech or in healthcare, and today, I mean, it just everything, even utilities at the end of the day turned and reversed to the downside. But let's say, for example, where everything's kind of red, but all of a sudden, not one, not 2, 3, 4, 5, the whole entire sector starts turning into a, flips into a buy signal. That's telling me that the entire sector, if it's all generating a buy signal, that's probably something that's a true reversal occurring, right? So I might be able to get an early warning signal based on the actual stocks contained in that sector, as I like to say, strength in numbers. The more stocks that are generating a 15-minute buy signal, that's pretty important. The more stocks that are starting to generate daily buy signals is really important. But if I'm in a buy signal on a daily basis, if I'm starting to see some upside action and I want to buy a pullback at support, this is the tool that I would utilize to identify the strength coming into A, both that stock, and B, the entire space or the sector that I'm looking at, okay? So that's one of the neat things about TradeStation, and how we can utilize this package. So if you notice, by default, because people, whether they like it or not, most people, or at this point in time, most people are familiar with the volume and an average, and by default, we threw it in. I personally, I look at volume on an individual bar. I'm not going to give you a trading lesson here. This is what we're utilizing, the indicators and how we use them session. So for me, I like to look at and almost every single one of my charts has the indicators and the correct corresponding time frame. Obviously, if I'm on a weekly chart, okay, if I'm on a weekly chart, I don't want a weekly pivot overlaid on a weekly chart. Why? Because it's going to show me one bar in that time frame. I generally will have a weekly pivot on a daily chart. Typically in equities, I also have the monthly pivot because I put more emphasis on the monthly pivots. I will have the monthly on the daily charts, and I'll have the 60-minute chart overlaid with a weekly chart of pivots. 60-minute chart with weekly pivots. Daily chart, you can use the weekly. Let's say, for example, you wanted to change that. Real simply put, insert analysis technique. If you're on 9.5 version 3, so you can see, go down, you have advanced decline, commitment of traders, you have your daily, your histogram, your monthly, your quarterly, weekly. Hit OK, and now I have two series of pivots. I'm going to go to format analysis because that's too much data for me. And now I'm going to undo or turn off for a moment the monthly pivot. So just hit status, turn it off, hit close, and now I've got the weekly. Ironically, we had the weekly pivot near monthly support in the euro currency. So this is something that when I look at all my charts together, I've got the corresponding targeted pivots, but most importantly, I have something that's I rely on mostly is the histogram component that helps me to uncover bullish convergence or divergence patterns, as well as the on balance volume, and that is on literally every single one of my charts. That way, when I'm running a scan and I look at this information, I can easily assess, is there longer term volume, and you'll notice that we have the daily charts, the weekly charts, and the monthly charts, and pretty much except for maybe it's unscaled, and if I click on the right here, background dragging, it automatically scaled my histogram and the OBV into view. All right? So anytime I'm running a scan, or with the most part of almost all the charts that I have, it's the histogram, the OBV, and of course the indicators. So for me, in my philosophy, man does not live on just price alone. Man needs to look at multiple time frames. And I think that if you understand where a market, if you're trying to figure out where a market might go, you better ask yourself, well, where the hell has it been? And that's something the longer term analysis will give you a better view on. Almost every single one of my charts has exactly the same analysis on the charts. They have the histogram, they have the OBV, and now it's just a function of understanding how to kind of line the ducks up to give myself a better edge in the market. And that's how I utilize this information, okay? So Bradley's asked a question on the criticism of OBV as a faulty indicator. Well, as you see, because of a stock, maybe all the volume to one side of the ledger, if the daily range differs by a penny. So if a stock's up a penny or down a penny, the volume is calculated by the stock advancing or declining by the positive or negative net change on the day. Sure, be more than happy to address it. You see that moving average line? You see a moving average line there, Bradley? That solves that problem. It smooths out that differential. So like sometimes you get a product that's not just looking at the move in the stock, and you can already start to see that as the price kind of, even on that 15-minute chart, it's starting to erode. You get a little low close doji. It's breaking that moving average value, and that's a strong indication, the fact that the momentum indicator, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. I don't think there's a perfect indicator out there. There's all types of people. I think that this does its job. That's why I like to use a moving average to help me define the overall trend. It certainly works a hell of a lot better than the volume histogram. And I know there's other indicators that filter out similar things of OBV, but they're smoothed out with moving averages, and that's what I've taken in effect here on a simple moving average to define the smoothness of that trend and the overall trend direction. So early in the market, as we're starting to see persons pivot, and this is utility, next era energy, and it's just, let's take a look at it because it's sitting right there in front of us. So persons pivots, I mean, at the end of this time frame, is targeting a higher green and a higher red. So what would that tell you? Hey, tomorrow the market's looking, you know, at the close of business, you calculate your pivots, it's giving you a higher green and a higher red. The market comes in, gives you a sell signal, you set your alert, and you got a high close doji and a PPS buy signal on a bullish day. The momentum is starting to show bullishness, and the OBV is pointing up. So I think that right there with the that type of setup is just a classic person trigger. And then, of course, the market moves up, and then you get a trend mode and a breakout. You get your last conditional changes, and the thing kind of keeps going till, you know, it keeps going. I mean, I didn't cherry pick this one, Bradley. Baby, there it is. And that's just even a silly-looking utility stock like NEE. You know, this is how it's designed and to what we're looking to spot. Does that trade happen every single day, every single minute? Yeah, almost. Different markets though. But you got to look at let me reemphasize what I just said. Does this type of pattern where we get a bullish outlook, a pullback, and a high close doji or a PPS buy signal with an upside momentum move on an increase in volume happen? Maybe not in that stock every day, but out of the choices that we have and the field of which we can look for trades, yes. NEE utility stock, I guess there could be an argument that it's defensive over the last couple days, but then again, that wasn't something that took place in the market here. We could say, take a look at the euro currency. Here, it's a different day, it's a different product, it's, you know, giving me a higher red, a higher green, buy signal, momentum, OBVs pushing up, and then, you know, the rest is history, right? So here's a bullish bias. You got a buy signal, the momentum's pushing up, the volume's pushing up, the trend of the volume's moving up. You got buy signals to profit from going with positive momentum. So anyway, that is, again, this is a very unique combination of indicators. Again, man does not live on bread alone. Man does not live on price-based indicators alone. This momentum indicator is based on the relationship between price and these moving averages and the distance of the two moving averages. If they separate too far, that's bullish, and price gets away from the moving average, that's bullish or maybe too extreme. And then all of a sudden, as you start to see the market get closer and closer and the moving averages start to get closer, you start to get the sense that the positive momentum of that rally is fading. If long, it may give you an indication to tighten up your stops or scale out. So that's one combination. Then if you start to see that, hey, the momentum is starting to fade and the volume is starting to flatline, this market may be, you know, in tune for a pullback or a correction. So these are really excellent tools. And the whole reason behind Jeffrey starting the PUG group was to give you guys a true experience as to what's the benefit of these and how is it applicable in everyday use, and what is the best way to get your, your signals out of the equipment, so to speak. And that's why we come in here and do this for you guys, because it really is an amazing combination that we've uncovered that should be most instrumental to your trading. So with that said, that does conclude our time together. I want to say thank you to Jeffrey, who has traveled the 4 corners of the U.S. I don't know how he does it, because Starbucks can't make strong enough coffee to do that. And then to come in here and to work with his friends and myself is awesome. So with that said, everyone, I hope you have found great use out of this. Again, this has been recorded. I'm going to stop the recording and